I'm going to call to order the Brawley City Council and successor agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency at our meeting of Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2017 at 5 p.m. Call to order and roll call.
Councilmember Noriega. Councilmember Kastner Howdicky. Here. Councilmember Wharton.
Here.
Councilmember Couchman.
Here.
Councilmember Nava.
Here.
I would like to state for the record that Councilmember Noriega is at another meeting, Imperial County Asthma Forum, and she will be here within the hour probably. Invocation by Pastor Jim Dowdy of the Valley Baptist Church.
Let's pray together. Father, we are so grateful to be here tonight. Just pray for your guidance upon this meeting as the meeting is going forward. I just pray for all the items on the agenda that you would just give wisdom and direction and discernment of what needs to occur in this great city of Brawley and this valley, Lord. I just commit the mayor and the great council to your hands right now, God. I just pray as a nation that we would put God first, as in God we trust is our theme, but Lord, I pray indeed that's what we will do. Your word says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but acknowledge him in all of your ways, and he will make your path straight. I just pray, God, that we would recognize that you are our hope and that you are our help in time of trouble and even in the good times. And so, Lord God, I pray for this city. I pray for all the families. I pray for the elderly in this time, protecting them in this heat, Lord God. I also pray for the children of Brawley, God. I also want to thank you for the teachers, and I pray for the police officers and the fire department and also those that serve in the military, Father. Thank you for their service and sacrifice and for all that they do, God. So we just commit this time to your hands, God, and just pray that your kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, God. And we just commit ourselves to you and just pray, Lord, that we would recognize that Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father except through you, God. So we commit this dear meeting to your hands, God, and pray for wisdom and direction, discernment, and all the above, and we would be careful to give you the praise and the honor, God. We thank you for what you will do, and I commit also the health and safety of this meeting to your hands, God, and putting your angels around it, I ask, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. Norma, could you lead us?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Pastor.
Pastor.
Okay, item 1, approval of agenda.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item number 2, public appearances, comments, not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. And please direct your questions and comments to the city council. And item 2A is introduction of Guillermo Cias, City of Brawley Public Works Director, City Engineer by Rosanna Bayonne Moore, City Manager.
If I could please have Mr. Cias step forward to the microphone. Guillermo Cias first joined the City of Brawley in 2007 as an associate civil engineer. With the departure of Yasmin Arellano, Guillermo stepped forward to serve as interim Public Works Director. After serving in an interim capacity for about 5 months, Guillermo chose to pursue another opportunity with a sister agency. The city pressed ahead through this event in addition to a number of staff transitions. I like to imagine that good things come to those who wait. The city continued its search to appoint a permanent director just about an entire year in total after the departure of Yasmin. On April 17th, 2017, Guillermo Cias returned to the city. Tonight, I introduce to you and the community of Brawley, Guillermo Cias, City of Brawley Public Works Director and City Engineer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Rosanna. Thank you so much for this opportunity to serve for the city of Brawley again in this capacity. And I just would like to say that I'm happy to come back to Brawley, and I miss a lot of this work, the community, and very different projects at the same time for the entire city. And I didn't realize that a person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome back.
Okay, moving right along. Item 2B is a proclamation declaring May 2017 as Veterans Appreciation Month. It's presented to Joanna Caballero, State of California Employment Development Department, Local Veterans Employment Representative. And I'll read the proclamation.
Mr. Carcelino is here this evening representing
Mr. Porcellino.
veterans of Imperial Valley.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Whereas the people of Imperial Valley appreciate and admire the thousands of men and women who served in the armed forces to protect and preserve their country and the freedoms enjoyed by all Americans. And whereas in war, international conflicts, and peacekeeping missions, men and women have been wounded, taken as prisoners, and died in the line of duty. And whereas veterans possess a wide variety of valuable qualities, including experience, maturity, leadership, and loyalty that make them ideal candidates for employment. And whereas the City of Brawley is committed to ensuring that veterans receive the services and programs for which they are entitled, and to promoting employer interest in hiring veterans. And whereas during Veterans Appreciation Month, state and local agencies increase employer awareness about the benefit of hiring veterans. And now therefore, the City of Brawley does hereby proclaim May 2017 as Veterans Appreciation Month in the City of Brawley. And I have a nice proclamation to present. We'll present that to Mr. Porcellino.
Low on Mr.
Mr.
I can. Do I direct it that way or this way? Or?
Just stand right here, the two of you stand here. and-
Stand right here.
Stand right here and we can get a picture.
Okay.
There you go.
There
The
you
press
go.
corps.
Why don't we do this?
Cheese. Okay. Okay, now you can.
Why don't you address this with the mic? Because then everybody-
First of
Oh, look at that.
First name Lee.
it's not like karaoke, is it? First of all, I would like to thank the whole city of Brawley for what you've done over the past years for all the veterans in this town. And I want to thank the people of Brawley for the support that we got over the years for all the veterans. And the veterans want to thank you. And most of all, go Navy.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lee, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe, Mr. Mayor, if I can just add to that, I don't want to steal any of Lee's thunder there on Go Navy, but the Air Force Academy cadets were at the White House today receiving the Commanders-in-Chief trophy for defeating Army and Navy earlier this year. So I'm just putting that out there. Just putting that out there. Just putting that out there.
That's all right. The Army gave it up, the Navy did.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Okay. Anybody, any other council member want to make any comment? No? Okay. All right. Then item C is Brawley Chamber of Commerce update by Katie Luna.
It's
There
perfect
she- And
timing.
there she is.
Makes her
So-
presentation and walks
Here
in.
you are. It's time for your update.
Well, good evening.
See, look at that. Perfect timing.
Yes.
Okay, well, Katie Luna, Brawley Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, everyone. Forgive my voice. We had so much fun at the Mega Mixer last night that I sound like this today. So it was very nice to see you there, almost all of you. Thank you for coming out and supporting the event. It was very well attended. We were very happy with the businesses that participated, the diversity of the crowd that attended. We were very happy with, and we look forward to continuing that next year as well over at the Hidalgo. Sunday kicked off Small Business Week nationally, And so our Mega Mixer was in celebration of starting Small Business Week. And, we do the Mega Mixer every year, but we definitely want to continue every year to celebrate Small Business Week as the nation does collectively. We feel strongly about that, and we will continue to improve on the offerings during Small Business Week as the years go on. This evening, I wanted to just give you a couple updates about some things that are going on at the Chamber. We have released our theme contest flyer. We're looking for a cattle call theme. We are already in the planning stages of cattle call, and we need a theme. And so we have opened up the theme contest to the public. Usually in the past, it's been done where the school district, the kids would send us themes. This year, we've decided to open it up to everyone. And so you can submit your theme, stop by the chamber, and we have a form there that you can fill out, or it'll be on our website as well by the end of this week. The deadline for that will be June 30th. So if you have a theme that you wish would have been a cattle call theme, submit it, and it could possibly be a winner. The winner will get to be in our parade as our junior grand marshal. Along the same lines of cattle call, as you know, last year the Chamber celebrated 60 years of cattle call queen royalty. And so Monday, May 1st, we opened up the application process for the Queen Contest already for this year, and that'll be open from May 1st through June 30th. So the Chamber has done the Cattle Call Queen Contest for 60 years, and we feel very strongly that the competition is a great asset to the community, and we want to continue to support that. But we recognize that the contest has evolved throughout California and throughout the nation. I think that there's, hopefully it's widely known, but if it's not widely known, we want to make it widely known that our Queen Contest is a stepping stone for the competitors to compete with their horses in California, all throughout the state, as well as on the international level. And if they go through the state competitions and they win, they're titled Miss Rodeo California. And if they win nationally, they're Miss Rodeo America. So it's a very serious competition, and we support the athletes that participate in this competition. But again, we recognize that the competition has evolved. And so what we've done this year is that we've recognized that, and we've taken proactive steps to support the changes that have been made throughout the nation with the competition. And so we've established the Brawley Cattle Call Queen Royalty Association. And the president is, who was going to be here tonight, but I apologize, we had a miscommunication on the time. Tracy Cox and her husband Larry Cox are co-chairing or being the president this year. And Tracy and Larry have Cheyenne Cox, who was our Little Miss title holder 2 years ago. They're a great asset to this competition, and we're very much looking forward to this year supporting the contest and the association, and just looking forward to great things coming in the future for that. Other than that, just a reminder that our Branding Iron nomination, our Branding Iron winner, we're looking for a winner, and so the nomination form is available. And if you have someone that you think would be worthy of the Branding Iron Award, we encourage you to send over the nomination. The Branding Iron winner is someone who has gone above and beyond for our community. They are just an outstanding citizen, well-rounded, and we would like to honor them as the Branding Iron winner. The date for the annual dinner and the Branding Iron award ceremony is June 1st. It's a Thursday, so definitely mark that in your calendars. Registration is open for that as well. And that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you, Katie.
thank
Katie,
you.
just for the record, for the public, I think it's Tina and Larry Cox, right? Not
Tracy.
It is Tracy? I'm
Yes.
wrong? Okay, I didn't know. All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
a different couple.
Oh, okay. I'm
Tracy and Larry
sorry.
Cox.
All right. That's what we were whispering amongst her. Hey.
We're already spreading rumors
Okay,
over
yeah.
here, you know? It's like-
But that, nonetheless, clarification.
Right?
Yes.
Public, so,
Right?
yeah.
Hey,
I just had a question, since you said the cattle call queen contest and the winners it's evolving. Have we had anyone win or compete in the California?
Yes, we've had past competitors who have gone on to the California competition and have been crowned as Miss Rodeo California. I can provide you with the names specifically. Two that I know of in the recent past that I can send the names over to you.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
it's a very serious competition. The girls work really hard on their horse to have the athletic ability to ride in the arena and to perform what's required of them. And so we're very proud of their athleticism and their dedication to the competition.
Absolutely.
Thank
very
you.
good. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for the
very
update,
much.
Katie.
Okay, we're in the public presentations part of our agenda. Does anybody else from the audience like to come forward and let the council know anything? No? No? I would like to say welcome to the high school students in the crowd there. And nice to see you. Nice to have you here. Okay. If nothing else, then we will go to item number 3, which is our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'd just like to abstain from item 3A. I was absent for the council meeting
Okay,
on March 7th.
so noted. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
And I will second that.
Okay. Does anyone wish to make any other changes? Okay, anybody from the audience? Doesn't appear. Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Now we will go to item number 4, which is our public hearings. And I will open the hearing 4A, which is appeal and potential override of Imperial County Airport Land Use Commission, ALUC, finding of inconsistency. It's on page 20 and 29 of your agenda. 20 through 20. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Gordon Gase, Planning Director. Any project that's planning or building permits within the airport zone goes through review at the County Land Use Airport Commission. This particular property, has existing structures on it. What they were asking to do is add a story to one of the structures. It went to the commission, the Airport Land Use Commission, and they found it inconsistent with here are the zones, and this one's a little hard to see, but it's actually in the A zone, which is the most restrictive zone here at the end of the west end of the runway. Is anything in any of these areas, whenever we have a new project or permit, it goes through review by the Airport Commission. A lot of times it's just if it meets the criteria, it's just standard.
Right.
You know, so 98% of the time, it is consistent. Here you can see a close-up of where it is in the A zone. It's just inside the A zone. And here are some existing structures that are in that particular area on that particular property that are taller already than the proposed second story of the building. Some of them being the power poles and the power lines. And even this structure in the back here will still be a little taller than the proposed second story of the proposed building. With another power pole. We did get one letter, if it's provided to you, that was in agreement with the Airport Land Use Commission. So
And Mr.
believe you have
Gast, if
that.
I may note for members of the public, copies of that letter are
Yes.
available here with our city clerk.
Right. I think, I believe the applicant is here also to answer any questions, if you have any specifics about the proposed building permit that they're
Okay.
planning to extend this story, one story.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Rothfleisch. The piece of property that we are attempting to improve lies in the A zone. We went, first of all, to the city. The city told us what we had to do to go ahead and make the rounds. We did everything we were asked to do. We went before the Airport Commission. The Airport Commission, after looking at all of the calculations and the information that we gave them, agreed that we were in conforming as far as the calculations that a pilot would use in order to figure out his sink rates and the distance he had to be from the runway, et cetera. My son is a pilot. He lands there regularly. And all of those parameters were met. They did tell me that they were more or less mandated by the federal government to deny anything built in the A zone because of that's the way they want it. Rothfleisch Ranches moved into that property late fall last year. We currently employ about 70 people. We have 8 people in the office. The girls in the office are on top of one another. We are completely out of room in our yard to be able to try to keep this down to a one-story structure. We would like to go to the 2-story. My initial contact with Gordon was he pulled the code out. The city code said 35 foot. We can easily, very easily conform to that requirement. And in fact, we could even go less than that. If the county or if the city decides that we need to carve a little bit off, we will. Initially, we had thought we would like to make this structure closer to the runway. We are willing now to move it completely back. And if you remember the picture there was a carport directly underneath the telephone poles. We will remove the carport and build directly underneath that telephone pole if we can get your approval. The FAA is overly cautious, and I understand that because I also fly, and I do appreciate that. But I think in this particular instance, the fact that there are telephone poles that are approximately 45 to 50 foot, our structure will probably be somewhere in the 25 to 35 foot range, probably 25 to 30. So we will be way, way underneath the existing problem on that site. I watched the pilots landing and taking off on that strip. Pretty hard to miss them. But when they're taking off, they are, I sat there today or the other day and watched, and I watched again today. When they're taking off, my estimate is that they're 20 to 30 foot over the top of the telephone pole already. And on landing, they're also well above that telephone pole and the lines that are stretching across there. We love Brawley. I've worked in Brawley for 26 years now, even though I do live in Holtville. And my son and I have farmed in the Imperial Valley for 40 plus years. We would like to continue to be a part of the Brawley community, to employ people and aid the economy of Brawley. And we respectfully ask you to okay our expansion so we can give our office girls a little more breathing space. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Council members? Donna?
I think it was, his explanation is really clear, and,
I just, if you do consider approval, like, say, one thing I missed out on is that last few pages about what we do always require when we have even in the past, and the council has overridden the Airport Land Use Commission, is that we require certain documents in the C and D zone. Their deed notices saying planes will fly near your house, and A and B zones or planes will fly closer near your property. So we request then that they just, if they record the navigation easement then if it's approved, that the building permits would be issued after we get a recorded copy back.
We're totally in agreement, whatever you decide.
I guess for Gordon, if I can ask a question of, so it was referenced about federal standards with respect to airport environments and sphere of influence and all that.
Right.
So as council, are we an exception to that, or is there, let's say there was clearly someone to build a 4-story, you know, there's
Right.
obviously got to be something where even council does not have the ability for a variance or anything to what those standards are. So I just want to understand that.
Correct. Yes, well, are FAA documents, some of the excerpts that Mr. Rothfleisch provided, and also I remember I worked as a contractor for the FAA in the past. I know, you know, there's glide slope requirements. It still meets those requirements. The Airport Land Use Commission's a relatively conservative body. I just, you know, if there was nothing there, you know, it'd probably be a good idea not to start building there, to have issues like you have in some of the bigger cities. Like I know there was an issue in San Diego, of a kind of tall building there that
a big
you're coming
issue,
in
yeah.
from,
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a previously built area. There's already structures taller than what they're proposing. I could see if it was taller than any of the poles or the wires, that it would be an issue, and we probably would definitely not want to exceed that. This is just a little more subjective, I think, though. I mean, do we want to let them add a story? Like I said, that's at your discretion, and it is legally okay, and it still will meet the federal requirements.
Thank you.
If I could just ask, Gordon, I'll defer to you with respect to your experience, but you wouldn't have any objection if we were to adopt the findings to override the ALUC decision in this case now?
I would have no objection. Personally, no.
Mayor Ketchum, may I just note one item? We've entertained a few questions that I think might be helpful for the council to be aware of relative to this topic. That is, what is the Airport Land Use Commission, and how is it different from our Airport Commission that is a City of Brawley entity to which the city makes appointments? Our Airport Commission is governed by the city. It is specifically assigned to issues within the airport property in Northeast Brawley. We did give all of the commission members a courtesy copy of the document just to make sure that they knew an item was going to be before the city council today. The Airport Land Use Commission, what makes it distinct is that it serves all airport properties countywide. So it's a county entity that has made this determination, and the rules for governing their decisions permit the city council to consider exercise of local discretion.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to close the public hearing at this time?
No, just a couple of things, a couple of comments. I actually, in looking at this, I wasn't sure of it, so I went out to the airport site. I traveled down on the runway. I stood at the end of the runway. I noticed the gentleman's building. I thought helicopters wouldn't have a problem, so I knew that was not a problem. I did go out with city staff, look at the site, look at the railroad track proximity, look at the other buildings and the power lines and everything. And looking at it, not everyone they don't always land and take off from that end of the runway. I think sometimes they utilize the other end of the runway. It depends upon wind and variations, a couple of other things that go on. Honestly, looking at it, I didn't see it as being a major problem. I'm not a pilot, but I didn't see a major problem with allowing one story. I would like them to possibly do what the gentleman stated, that they would move that back towards the carport area, and maybe make it below the 30. If they can get below the 35 feet, that would be.
Right.
That would be
They
a
have to
good-
be below the 35.
That would be a good thing, I think, for the pilots coming in and out of there. I do think that by the time they get up and over the railroad tracks, they've got to be up pretty high to miss the power line. So in looking at all of that and taking that all into consideration, I mean, I did a pretty thorough review of what we were looking at out there. And so with that in mind, is there anybody else from the audience that needs to come forward? If not, then I will move to close the hearing. Okay. And so what's the pleasure? I will.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a
Yeah.
motion to override the Imperial County Airport Land Use Commission ALUC finding of inconsistency and approve the item.
Yeah, and I would like to second that. as well.
Okay. Motion.
Before you vote, we should have some findings as part of your motion. As a suggestion, you could find that the proposed structure will be lower than existing structures, meet federal guidelines, things like that.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add that based on the findings that we heard from today, that the structure would be well below existing structures that are nearby, I would find that that would be sufficient to override the Imperial County Airport Land Use Commission finding of inconsistency.
Okay, and you would agree to that?
I will agree. Yes, second.
Modification, okay.
May I ask a point of
Additional.
clarification? With regard to the avigation easement, are you directing staff to proceed with preparation and recording?
Yes,
Thank you.
and that's consistent with the staff report, so. yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Call for the
Then
question.
I'll call for the question, then if there's no further comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, okay.
Good luck, Mr. Rothweiler.
Thank you.
Good luck, yeah. We want to keep you in Brawley, that's for sure.
Okay, so. Okay. Okay, item 4B is a public hearing for the City of Brawley zoning ordinance amendment site plan review. And who's going to take that?
Gordon Gates,
Gordon.
Planning Director.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, as we continuously do, we always look at, our ordinances and how they meet, how they change with time and laws and the wording and the requirements. Every once in a while, we come across something that just needs to be cleaned up. This is something that was caught by the city attorney, and staff agreed that we should probably update the verbiage in this particular ordinance, just to be a little more clear about what types of things are part of the site plan process. So if you look at the first few pages after the staff report, you have it in color there. You'll see that the red areas are the areas that are edited, and then starting at page 34 is the final version of the new ordinance. Like I said, it's just kind of a cleanup, and say this is something we continuously always look at when situations come up, or just state laws change, or whenever it warrants an update. And it's ordinances are they are just like any other law. They're always the work in progress. So every once in a while we need to do things like this. So if you have any questions about it, or Mr. Smearin will be happy to answer.
Any questions from the council?
No, I mean, my take on it was that pretty much it's just to ensure that we address any issues with the infrastructure in the city, right?
Correct.
Right, okay. Thank you.
And the purpose of this public hearing, because this is a zoning ordinance, so you can't just have a first reading. You have to have a public hearing first, and then you have a first reading later.
Okay, so that will come later as we move
Yes.
along, first, second reading. Okay,
But this is the public hearing for
this
this.
is the
Yes.
public hearing for this, and so I would like to open this up for the audience, if anybody would like to come forward and make any comments on this in the public hearing. If not, then I will close the public hearing, and we'll move to the pleasure of the council. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Gordon.
you.
Okay, we'll go to item number 5 on the agenda, which is our regular business. Item 5A is discussion and potential action regarding appointment of LAFCO commissioner. It's on page 40 of your agenda.
Who will lead that discussion, Mr.
Yeah. Just, all we have in our backup would be, Mr. Mayor, is just a
Just a
letter
letter.
of notification from,
So just as
Your tea burger.
context for this particular item, the LAFCO appointment is a regional appointment. So the mayors of all of local jurisdictions get together to nominate and vote. And the intention is to make the council aware of the upcoming term expiration of El Centro City Council member Jason Jackson. A date has not yet been set for the mayors to act on this vacancy. As I understand it, Mr. Jackson has expressed interest in reappointment. I will also note that former council member Don Campbell was an LAFCO appointee. And in years past, there's been discussion of the benefits of diversity among the LAFCO body, whether it's north or south or big jurisdictions and the smaller agencies. And it's been suggested to the mayor it might be helpful to receive some feedback from the body as to how an appointment might come forward in the future.
I think that might be best. I have already been approached by Mr. Jackson regarding reappointment, and I've had some discussion with the council, with one of the members of the council here, only one. And so I think we need some more additional input on this before we do this. And they haven't scheduled anything, and normally they would normally have a meeting before the League of Cities dinner, and that's normally how that works. It's very informal. It's been a very quick process. It really hasn't involved too much, but I think we would like some additional information from both LAFCO and who's on there now, who's going to be representing us, and if there's a need for a North End representative or a need for a small city representative, we probably need to address that issue here at the council. So maybe for the next meeting, we could have that information, then we could discuss it. I don't know that it requires a motion from us or anything like that, but I do think I would like some input.
Do we know some basics as far as how often do they meet? I understand that meeting just before League of Cities, but actually the commission itself, are they meeting?
I believe they have a set date monthly, but oftentimes they meet fewer than
monthly?
Than once per month. It's a reserved date. I can come back to you with information on the complete composition of the board, meeting frequency, and the day of the month.
Yeah.
It also depends on what is really happening, if
Right.
there's any annexations, things of that
Right.
nature. so.
Just some additional information, when they're going to have this meeting would be helpful, who the composition is of who's on the LAFCO right now, and just some information. And Mr. Euberger is the executive officer, I think, for LAFCO. Might want to touch base with him also.
Okay. Happy to do so.
With respect to potential action for tonight's discussion, what would that be?
It would have been to give guidance
Direction
to
and
the mayor
direction.
so that when the mayor moves forward
Potential
with an action
appointee.
item, as his single vote on behalf of the city of Brawley, that it represents the consensus of the body.
I would still offer my support to you, Mr. Mayor, if you ever considered an appointment to LAFCO, so.
Okay, very good, very good. I would like to know some more information before I can.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just move forward on that, and we've given guidance to staff, and so that's where we go. Okay, item number 5, regular business B. 5B, discussion and potential action regarding the 2015-2016 annual and 5-year report for development impact fees per Government Code Section 66001, 66006, and capacity fees per Governmental Code Section 66013.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Ruby Walla, Finance Director. The report with the staff report starting on page 41 is the annual impact fee report. If you recall, we came to council about this time last year with the 5-year and annual report that covered through 2015. Now we are required with the impact fees by government code to report annually by December 31st the expenditures accrued for the prior fiscal year, which would have ended June 30, 2016. Those numbers have been drafted. They have been drafted in connection with David Tosick and Associates, taking the 5-year and annual report that we prepared for 2015 and moving forward. If you recall, we had several comments received from the Desert Valley Builders Association, and they commented on that report in terms of the projects identified as expenditures, the projects identified for future as part of our needs list, and they also questioned the balances as they were discrepancies in prior years. All those things had been changed in the prior report, and then as well as when we made amendments per that report as well, based on where we found that one, they weren't eligible projects for impact fees, and we've removed those from the list, and we made those corrections on the final report of the 5-year report. And we have done the same with the annual report. We've reported all the balances, we've reported all the expenditures which are included in the report. DVBA and the gas company were both notified as required. They are required to be notified 15 days prior to council action, and they have all received their proper notices. We did receive comments again from Desert Valley Builders Association, and we received their responses on March 27th. And we have corresponded with those responses as well, and a copy of it is in the backup as well. All the projects identified were, they questioned replacement or use. We have provided the justifications as far as if it seems, for instance, we have expenditures for fire station number 1, and what that correlates is that there is a certain percentage that was prepared in the impact fee study, which is the driving force for our current impact fee rates. These projects were included in that impact fee study. If they're existing infrastructure, they have been attributed as a ratio of growth, which in this case, the average is 34.4%. And that's the ratio that we have utilized. So we don't, when we have those types of projects, we don't fund them 100% from impact fees. A portion comes from the general fund, and then that 34% will come from impact fees as long as it's an eligible project. The goal of the impact fees, of course, is attributed to growth, so any impacts due to growth. And we have addressed those. We've referenced the needs list, and we've worked in terms of the project listing that's at the end of the report to identify our future commitments. If you look at the balances, some of the commitments that are on there are expectations for projects. The costs far exceed our balances, so it's going to take us some time. So what we have to show as a city is that we're not spending the money, but we have goals as far as what projects that we're committing those funds to. And once funds are available or we have matching funds of another nature, then we would proceed with those types of projects. And so what we were asking tonight is for council to accept the drafted report.
I move that we accept the draft report.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the audience? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Remy.
Thank you. Okay, item 6 on our agenda is the fiscal year 2017-2018 Enterprise and Special Funds Workshop, presentation, discussion, and direction. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor Couchman and members of the council. Tonight, we started at 5 p.m. so that we have an opportunity to account for a special topic, which is our enterprise and special funds. This is the 4th of 6 scheduled budget-related discussions for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. So as a refresher, we have more than a dozen active funds. These are funds that have very restricted purposes. And what the intention is tonight is to highlight major projects that are on the horizon within the next 12 months. So in terms of our approach, it can be summarized as follows. We aim to maintain the existing operational budgets throughout a number of cost centers. Our focus is on fulfilling a number of significant grant commitments, and we're going to talk a little bit in detail about that this evening, as well as do our best to perform a number of carryover projects that are of great strategic importance to the city. But as we balance the timing associated with our grant opportunities, we need to shuffle in the projects that are locally funded to accomplish both those that are grant supported and those which are locally funded. We're doing our best to maximize staff capacity. As stated earlier, I'm delighted to have the addition of our Public Works director, but at the same time, we continue to work through staff transitions, and we have two very prominent positions within the Public Works Department that will affect the manner in which the city can complete projects. The first is the number 2 position, which is the deputy director, as currently conceived. And we also have a longtime city employee who straddles both the water and sewer ends of our universe, who will be retiring this summer, and an active recruitment underway to accomplish a replacement. What we're hoping for tonight is to hear from the council whether the proposed approach works, and specifically whether we're devoting the proper attention to grant projects, grant-supported projects, at the same time as addressing what the leadership of the city is driving to accomplish. And hopefully I can describe in some detail what exactly the challenge is on this front as we look to a number of projects on the horizon. So we've talked already about these transitions. We have implementation obligations. The council recently considered an alternative approach to 2 grants involving bus shelters and ADA access improvements. In that scenario, due to staffing shortages, we had to approach Imperial County Transportation Commission and seek deadline extensions in order to retain eligibility for these grant awards, and we're working within extremely compressed timelines. And you'll see the balance is a mix of having the ability to use outside resources in connection with performing the projects versus the types of projects that we need to use our in-house talent to perform because they're already constrained from the point of view of cost. Okay, so this is a big picture overview of 5 active grants with upcoming deadlines this fiscal year. And the intent is to capture these opportunities and be sure that we can deliver on the commitments that the city made when we applied for these awards of funds. So the first is a congestion management air quality grant that we received. It involves the preliminary engineering for the first leg of Wildcat Drive. This would be the extension behind Walmart to the first street that runs north-south, which is First Street. So just doing that leg is funded in the next fiscal year, and for a future year in 1920, we will have construction funds awarded for that first leg to accomplish what we engineer next year. As described earlier, we have the ADA improvements and bus shelters on Imperial Valley Transit routes. That's just shy of $1 million. Those are 2 grant awards. We are awaiting on deadline extension approval. The council did support for those 2 awards. If we're successful with the deadline extensions, we'll be executing a contract with an outside engineering firm to perform that work on a very expedited basis that resembles 60 to 90 days. We've got a third grant, which is via the Air Pollution Control District. This is phase 2 of Volunteer Park. It's the east end of Volunteer Park, and it's an exciting opportunity to improve a highly utilized dirt lot that many of our baseball enthusiasts visit. It does involve a local match. I want to share with you that the council, when we first applied to this opportunity, we brought an item to the council following the Air Pollution Control District's consideration. The APCD aimed to award 2 projects instead of just 1, fully funded. And so the opportunity was extended to both the city of Brawley and a neighboring entity to provide a local match. So the city at the time pledged a local match of $102,000. At the time, we, as staff, were looking at the use of the general fund reserve in light of its current condition and how it may be impacted by this next fiscal year's future approved budget. We have a strategy in place to utilize funds in our maintenance fund to do the match instead. So what we're proposing as part of the budget is to include $102,000 from the maintenance fund instead of from the general fund reserve. Okay, I want to describe to you a fourth funding opportunity that we have secured. This one will hopefully ring familiar because we held some public hearings on this topic. The city was successfully awarded $2 million in CDBG funds in 2012 to acquire the fire apparatus and complete about $1.5 roughly million in sewer manhole rehabilitation. At the same time, the state of California was in the process of changing the rules for the use of program income funds. Program income funds have historically been used by the city to do things like business loans, but because the rules changed, these funds are now focused on target populations, specifically defined economically distressed areas that have to be supported by census tract information or countywide data. You may recall that because of elevated average income levels in the city, we can no longer do general purpose projects because our income levels have elevated to a point that they're no longer eligible, which requires us to either do a focused census tract study or hit a different target population, whether it's homeless, veterans, or seniors. So with staff kind of putting on their thinking hats, we did some census tract evaluation of various parts of the city, and we found that the area abutting Hinojosa Park would allow Hinojosa to benefit from certain ADA and pedestrian improvements. So we submitted that project. There is not currently any sidewalk around Hinojosa Park, and there are very limited ADA improvements. So we submitted Hinojosa Park after many, many other projects were considered, and this one was approved to move forward. We also had the senior center roof replacement project because it affects the senior population. We tried many different potential projects at the senior center, but roof replacement was the one that had all of the successful ingredients. So where this leaves us is that because we received a $2 million award from the city, the state now says we have to use local funds first. What that resulted in was a remainder of $1,260,000 roughly. And these are the only two supplemental activities that the state will approve for us to use the remainder funds. And the reason it's significant is because we can't compete for other CDBG money till we exhaust this pot of remainder funds. So it will be quite a process to undertake improvements of this proportion. If you imagine Alice Giroux is approximately $2.4 million. This is a big project for us to in-house design and deliver within the next 12 to 18 months. So I want to make sure that we make note of the significance of that project, and it matters to us because it will inhibit our ability in the future to seek other grants from CDBG that are for important infrastructure projects within city limits. Okay, and then the last one is a Caltrans award. These funds have to be utilized this next fiscal year, and they're just shy of $300,000 in sidewalk improvements citywide. So in total, this is about a little bit in excess of $3 million. Each one of these funding entities have certain program requirements. They are very intensive to administer. When we go out to bid, we have to follow very specific procedures, and more than anything, what I hope to convey with this slide is that we want to do everything possible to preserve these grant opportunities, but nothing is free. And so not only do some of them involve local match, but it's also a lot of the city's bandwidth to perform the obligations of the grant as well. And we want to do everything possible to take advantage of these awards of funds. I will focus first on the Water Enterprise Fund and a number of projects that we would describe as most critical. And I will ask our city engineer to come forward and provide some additional explanation as well. Before I hand off to Guillermo, I'd like to share that there was a very long list of capital projects presented. As staff, we do our best to present those that are most critical based on the financial opportunities available to us. And so what you see today is an abbreviated list. It is not our complete list, but it is those that we, as a city, could perform within our financial means of the Water Enterprise Fund. So with that, I will hand off for a moment to Guillermo.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Guillermo Sillas, Public Works Director. As the city manager mentioned, we were reviewing several projects included on the water treatment plant, and we were able to identify some of the projects based on the resources. This, excuse me. This project is been in the list for a while, and it consists of the replacement of components on the on the sedimentation basin that allows to remove the sediment from the water. It consists of 2 basins, and we are proposing to just rehab one of those. The other one will be in the next years. Includes several components, as you can see on the slides, and so those components are critical to perform the removal of the sediments, and the cost is estimated at $540,000 for the just one basin. The next project, it is the rehabilitation of the second distribution pump of 5. This fiscal year, we were able to rehabilitate one pump we call the 421, which is the pump that is to the left. And the first 2 pumps to the left are the ones that are in operation continuously, and when it's required, it alternates with the other 3 pumps. So the first 2 on the left side are the ones that takes the most work to distribute the water throughout the system. So the first one was rehabilitated already, and the second one is that we are proposing to do this next fiscal year. The cost is estimated at about $100,000. The first pump took the company almost a year to rehabilitate because initially the assessment was that was not in such a bad shape, but when they remove it and the assemble, they realized that was in, or that required much more components to replace. That's the second one. The third one is the replacement of, on the left, if you can see the left picture, those electrical components, the name is actuators. They are SCADA controlled, and they open and close valves that allows the conveyance of the water from the sediment basins to the filtration basins. And it is also included in this project the replacement of large diameter valves. Is about 36 to 48 inches that are submerged. And it's on supposedly on the picture to the right, but since it's underwater, so you cannot see. But the column that you see is the way to open or close it. Going back to the previous project, there's as I mentioned, there's 5 pumps on the distribution that we are proposing to replace one each year, and on this one, the actuator and valve replacement, the cost is about $300,000. There are some other equipment and that needs to be replaced that will be on the list for the next years to come. As you might recall that this fiscal year we replaced the liner of one of the ponds, and also we have 2 other ponds that are larger than this one that were replaced, the liner. And those are very critical too, but those are like triple the size of the ones that were replaced. And due to the limitation on the resources, will be postponed for next years. With that said, I will hand it out to city manager to continue with the projects.
And visually on those liners, I mean, you can tell it's deteriorated considerably, so, but they are massive, you know, so it's, I can see where the cost is, you know, hindering that.
We have a couple more water projects that I'd like to touch on. So we began with the grant commitments. We first then turned to the water plant that has some very significant capital projects to undertake. And you know, to responsibly address the needs of the facility, we want to make sure that we're ordering things in the proper fashion for delivery as projects. And where that brings us next is a very significant project to the city of Brawley and to our leadership here on the council, and that is the Main Street water line replacement project. This project has been in the queue for some time, and it takes into account not only Main Street from 1st to 8th, but also a number of chronic areas that have been the subject of breaks throughout the years, highest frequency break locations. So you'll see 3 referenced segments. Our original budget figure that was for estimating purposes several years ago was set at $2 million. We now can speak from a set of designed plans, actually engineered plans, that the estimated value is closer to $4 million. And as a result of that, where that leaves us is city staff are looking for how we might be able to bring a financing alternative to the city. We have initiated discussions with a number of funding entities to see what terms might be available to the city, and we hope to be coming to you in the future. We did not wish to erase this project and the $2 million set aside because if nothing else, at least we can continue to accumulate dollars on an annual basis to eventually arrive at the total figure. This does slow many of the important strategic initiatives of the city. The relinquishment of Caltrans right-of-way, we have those funds set in a clearly defined account where the interest is accruing only to that sum. But our ability to do at grade or above grade improvements, the rationale we've used is that working under the surface is step 1, bringing things to street level is step 2. And so as you begin to think about the sequence of events that are possible for Main Street, and we see ourselves short, I think it would be helpful to you to know as council, we did look at the option of doing no other capital projects and simply accomplishing Main Street. But you can see from the types of aged issues that we're confronting at the water plant, to do so could put the city at risk. So we limited the number of projects that we brought forward, tried to retain the $2 million value, in terms of a water enterprise set aside, and only move forward with the most critical projects to have minimal redundancy in the plant. So if option 1 in operations fails, that we at least have an option 2. One other thing, two other matters that I would like to touch on. On an annual basis for the last 4 years, we've had a valve replacement project. Valves cost approximately $25,000 a piece. It allows us to exercise control when we have a break, so valves are really important to the city's water distribution system. Last year, as a result of the need to address some issues in another part of the city, which was involving the airport water storage tank reservoir, we placed year 4 of the valve replacement project on hold and diverted the $100,000 that would normally be part of the process to the airport water storage tank reservoir. So what we're proposing this year is to bring back the valve replacement at $100,000 and just try our best to continue to systematically deal with valves throughout the city, and hopefully someday we'll accomplish that level of control that has value to all of our customers in terms of breaks and the inconveniences that may result citywide. We also assume in the numbers that are currently drafted, payment 5 of 15. This is a 15-year loan that was taken out from the wastewater enterprise to the water enterprise. The hope was to repay it in 1 year. Unfortunately, the water enterprise has not performed to expectation. And 5 years ago, we actually established a payment plan to at least move towards payoff of the wastewater enterprise in some fashion over a number of years. So we are accounting for payment 5 of 15 in the assumptions. And then last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not mention the desire and expressed interest on the part of the Airport Commission to secure lease payments from Fire Station Number 2. Fire Station Number 2 is located on airport property. And this concept is kind of in the form of, if you think about it in terms of particular colors of money, we would pay out of the general fund to the airport fund, which is a special fund, lease at market value. So that is not assumed in this budget. Every year we do our best to remember that this is an issue in our city that is a concern to one of our bodies. Okay, I'm going to move on to wastewater. We do have 2 carryover professional services contracts that are very likely not to be completed this fiscal year. That is the biosolid study that was recently awarded, and we expect to have a contract for stormwater management technical assistance. This is due to the regulatory environment in California changing and certain obligations that local agencies have to develop stormwater strategy regardless of how infrequent rain is in Imperial Valley. Lastly, want to note that we do account for our normal operational expenses that are significant, which is the UV bulbs and UV analyzer. This is the ultraviolet phase of our wastewater treatment plant operations. I know all of you are familiar with it because the price tag associated with the supplies is always a topic of discussion. We also have one remaining shade. I want to share with you when the wastewater treatment plant was first renovated or rehabilitated or modernized in 2012, we had planned to construct extensive shade structures throughout the wastewater treatment plant. And when those values came in, we found ourselves at close to $1 million in shade structures. Our staff did their very best to be industrious and come up with far lower cost options. And they have accomplished the majority of the shades at a smaller value. We do have one remaining equipment shade left that we do expect the need to move forward with, and this is to protect our plant features from exposure to the sun. And so we've reduced that value from approximately $710,000 to $80,000. And we've also included the sewer line replacement project. This project was combined with the Main Street water line project, so it's bundled together, and the portion that affects the wastewater enterprise is approximately $300,000. And those are the segments that are referenced as chronically challenged. Last but certainly not least, we have our LTA Phase 11 project. And this is a project, it was a good exercise to talk with staff about how significant roadway improvements are to the residents of Brawley. There is no topic, I think, more pressing to our residents than the quality of the roads that they drive on. It's very easy to not think too heavily about the water that reaches our businesses and homes, or the sewer lines that run throughout the city. It's really the streets are how I think in many ways people imagine quality of life. And when they're not talking about parks and recreation and public safety, this is the next topic of major importance to our residents.
And I know that we talked about it the last meeting, or it was brought up, about the trucks running through our residential. And it's very true. I mean, we really need to get on that because they are really getting into I see these big trucks in residential, I mean, in the middle of, other streets. And I'm thinking, why? Why is it that they're
making their way into our local streets?
Yes.
An area for additional enforcement.
Yes.
So I don't want to lose sight of LTA Phase 11 in any way. We have been delayed at delivery. But again, as you look at the $3 million and 6 grant awards that we have, the capital projects that we really truly need to deliver at the water plant to ensure that proper redundancy is in place, we find ourselves, normally we in-house design all of our roadway projects, and that is our intent with this project as well, because it allows us the chance to extend those funds out as far as possible to do as many feet and miles of roadway as those dollars can accomplish. So we have 1.9 that are programmed for use in the next fiscal year as part of the budget assumptions. And then lastly, this is, actually, I think I have 2 slides left. 4 extremely important projects with a great deal of history to them. We have the Plaza Lighting Project. That project has 3 phases: North Plaza, South Plaza, and Main Street. North and South have funding set aside at $620,000. We're very near the final form of the engineering documents and ready to go out to bid, hopefully within the next 60 to 90 days. We have a small-scale downtown beautification project. This had originally been contemplated as a xeriscaping and public art piece joint project with North County Coalition of the Arts. Due to some priority changes, I think we will very likely only move forward with the xeriscaping components. Although I've had some discussions with the owner representative as recently as last week about possibly reviving the public art piece. So that is programmed at the $15,000 level for that area in between the hopefully new to open Patty's at the Rock and our transit station. The third bullet is a preliminary engineering report for Main Street. And this would be a section of Main Street that currently has no street lighting. So it's between Eastern Avenue and Best. We have set aside, this particular project grew out of a strategic planning meeting and a series of concerns that came forward from property owners on East Main. The council chose to assign some resources in the budget process, and it's a carryover project. We know it's significant. I speak with the parties with some regularity that were involved in establishing this priority. It continues to be a meaningful project that we hope to undertake. And then lastly, we have a project also hoping for an in-house design to go out to bid and accomplish among all the other projects that were listed, and that is the South Alley between Brawley Avenue and 2nd Street. It is not a total rehab, it is an overlay project. What we aim to do is accomplish it with the use of funds that are set aside in our franchise agreement that have to do with the weight of trucks that are involved in trash hauling and retrieval. There's a set-aside amount every year that the franchise agreement calls for, and we propose to use 2 years of funding to address the South Alley on Main Street between 1st and 2nd. So this is another project that we're hopeful about putting on the to-do list in the next fiscal year. Just a couple more to get through. These are 2 projects that were part of prior budget year discussions. The first is an area of B Street that currently has no continuous sidewalk or ADA improvements, yet it is a path of travel for many pedestrians that are moving from east to west between Cesar Chavez and 8th Street, typically making their way to the high school or other destinations to the west. So we have a project defined as pedestrian and ADA improvements at $223,000. This involves improvements over the Union Pacific Railroad facilities. And then we also have focused Main Street ADA improvements. And if folks may recall from prior discussions, the intent of this $50,000 set aside was so that when businesses want to locate in the downtown, we have strategic locations throughout the city where we can relieve them of a condition because we've already accomplished the improvement. So what happens is if a property abuts a corner where the ADA, there is no ADA ramp or the ADA ramp does not comply with current standards, they're obligated as a condition of approval for that work to be performed by the developer, tenant, or whichever their business arrangement.
So that is the Main Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so would the money that Caltrans left us or gave us, could we use that money for that? That's an improvement.
It's possible that the relinquishment money could be utilized for that. It would be up to the council to determine whether you wish to use that or a gas tax funds to accomplish the ADA improvements.
How much money are we talking about as far as the Caltrans funds?
Our settlement was $9 million for the portion. It's for all future maintenance associated with Main Street from 1st to 8th and from 8th to Old Highway 111 extending to the north to the overpass. So it is far in excess of what it will cost. Our maintenance obligations are far in excess of the $9 million.
But that's a start.
But that's all they would get.
That is our settlement. Yes. So it will be up to the city council to determine how you wish for those funds to be utilized. There have been a number of stakeholder interests that suggest commercial centers are on Old Highway 111, and those are best served. And in some ways, there's probably equally strong arguments to make about the significance of Main Street and its downtown, and whether the best approach is to couple the funds with other funds that the city goes out and seeks, or you could opt as a city to use those funds in one fell swoop and exhaust them. And then any future obligation will be locally funded. Would also like to make note, some discussions that have come forward from the council, at the council level, regarding Legion Road. An active discussion occurred before the council involving the use of development impact fees. As you see from the balances that are accumulated, those were just through June 2016. We're on pace to have the funds available to accomplish it. Probably the greatest challenge would be to where does this project fit with all of the other priorities that are currently being carried by the Public Works Department. But want to make sure you know this assumption, we're building it into the budget. If you don't want to see it there, it would be great to hear feedback, or if you're fine with it. Today's hope is to kind of make you aware of the big projects that are on the horizon, and are we on track? We want to hear from you, are we on track, or do we need to correct course?
And if I could add a comment to that, at ICTC, I did again reemphasize the fact that it is there's a gap obviously from the transportation funds impact fees that we have, $900,000 to 1.3 or $1.4 million. So I did make the argument that it is an impact that we receive that's regional in nature. You know, the hospital is there and it serves the north end, it serves the south end. The members of ICTC seem to understand that. So I'm going to see if we can lobby an effort to see if we can gap the difference and find a gap solution there. And that would be maybe an alternative form of funding this project. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to make it an active lobbying effort starting, I've already started it. So. My next goal is probably to reach out to some developers that are looking to develop near Legion and the hospital, of course. So we'll take it from there.
Which I believe, just to add to that, I think most of us are aware, but the hospital's embarking on some rather aggressive growth and expansion. So I think that was mentioned when we first moved.
But more information that we can gather, like where their client base is coming from, and those sorts of things, I think would help make the argument. So.
Oops, I'm sorry, I went back. Okay. Lastly, we have 2 items that are carryover. Our hope was to construct a maintenance shop shade so that our personnel who work on fleet maintenance have shade to work in. Many of our vehicles are not able to clear entry into the garage space. And so we have the maintenance shop shade. It has been designed. We're working to get the value closer to what was estimated at 110. When we look at this project relative to all the others, we continue to try to juggle and reprioritize to accomplish, but we'd like to continue to carry this on the list to accomplish after higher ranked projects. And then lastly, we had the sidewalk cleaner referenced, and I know some concerns have come forward from council. Again, intent would not be to place this at the top of purchases, but rather bring an item back to you in the future. And with that, do you have any questions? Are we on the right path?
I believe so.
On the Legion Road issue, I just would need information as to how that impacts our ability to redo other streets in that area. I think they're coming due. I think that's where we're headed with our next year's, once we're done with South Palm and some of the streets in that area, I think we're moving over into that area. And how does that expenditure, if we come to that point, how does that affect the additional streets we would do in that area, or what impact does that have overall for that area? I don't know if it does. It may be separate totally. That's kind of the information that I need to know.
Would be happy to prepare that for a future item.
Or any other streets here in the city of Brawley.
Right.
We probably should gather what streets do need to be worked on, not just off of Legion Road, but everywhere else, what we haven't done. I'm sure there's out there.
We have a
We already
catalog
have the-
of all streets.
Yeah, we have the LTA plan as well. So that's
What our
something-
obligation as a city is to do is that the developer impact fees in particular.
Yes.
We need to have a proper nexus between use of the funds and where growth has occurred. So areas that have experienced major construction activity. Those would be the areas where the greatest match is. As brought to the council previously, staff, recognizes that this is a great regional roadway to compete for funds. But perhaps this is a pathway to get there faster. From a developer impact fee point of view, the report you saw here today, what the development community wants to see is that their dollars that are assessed are actually being used. We have an obligation to not sit on the money, but to actually utilize it for improvements. Our struggle will be to deliver all of the projects in light of their volume. And the grant timelines, which may or may not reflect the highest priority needs of the city.
Yeah, I think that was the theme of the whole presentation, was really bandwidth, our ability to deliver. So with that, I for one would certainly, I think there's some very positive, I'll call it creative funding to come together. If we can improve a street like Legion, no different than we improved South Palm, that absolutely need to look at that. I think it's the right work. But can I go back to the top of the presentation,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, about the grant match? I think that was kind of at the top, and I think that's important. In looking at that, and again, it's a bandwidth issue. We want to compress timelines, multiple projects, and obviously what could be in jeopardy is the opportunity to take advantage of grants, which often we voice, right, as a council. From a purely operational standpoint, and I know with Guillermo here, I know dove right back into the fire here with the project. I'm sure they're the same projects that were there before. Is there some operational consideration as to those prioritization to best give us the ability to meet all of those timelines, or is there going to be a potential sacrificial lamb? And I think I'd rather know that now as council than to be confronted with that 6 months from now.
The two most sensitive awards are those which have come before you, which is the FTA 5311, where we're seeking the extensions to the deadlines, and we're awaiting an answer. As shared with the council previously, the unfortunate consequence of missing a deadline is that the whole region misses. So this is some of the reason, if we could eliminate all other projects and just do these, I think we could get across the finish line. But the reality is, we know we have to move forward with water plant improvements no matter what. And we also have to be able to respond to emergencies as they arise. And, once or twice a year, we may have an issue that changes our focus as staff.
And Roseanne, I think it's important for the public and the city to know with the enormity, just the size and scope and the number, the quantity of these projects that we're trying to take on. We're doing this with how many people? Roughly, what's the head count, for example? A lot of this is impacting public works in general, right? So you're doing all this with 3 people, and I know there's private firms out there with 10 times the head count and whatnot. I think that's important to understand, and that's why in many of these cases, when we seek outside assistance, which clearly costs more money, for us to do, but I think council would continue to be in support of not jeopardizing this because of the nature of the funds. We have grant commitments, so obviously if our costs are a little higher to get that assistance, we would certainly look at that.
We appreciate the option for flexibility.
There is additional cost. We had Mr. Jack hold on for several months, and so even incorporating his use, I know Guillermo's jumped back into the fire, as Councilmember Wharton has said. And so we have another engineer here on staff, but if we need additional help, I would be in favor of that as well, because we would essentially be giving up multiple millions of dollars here, or risking that, right? If we don't move forward on those projects. So
there are a number of capital projects that we are proposing to use, and we have historically used outside construction management support. Those that are at the water plant, typically we use an outside entity to assist that's a specialist in water plant or wastewater plant infrastructure. What I'll be doing with staff is looking at each of these funding opportunities where there's flexibility to utilize a portion of the funds for use of an outside consultant, we will, or if there are local funds available that aren't the general fund and aren't the water fund, because those are our two most challenged funding sources. But staff really, we all appreciate the option to be flexible and bring good alternatives back to you if needed, if we can't hit the target on these.
Absolutely.
Utilizing the funds that are available. We're just trying very hard to preserve the general fund set-aside value and not tap it for these projects.
I think we would look at options that you bring forward. If they're needed and they're value, and they are of value to us at that given time, I think we're open to that, to discussing that and looking at what we need to do in order to keep this running. I think we've already got something going on with the beef plant where we have an
Yes.
outside engineer working to try to expedite those kinds of issues for them. And I think we should look at
Right.
the same thing for each of the grants that we go through. What I found with grants is that they're neat to have and they serve a public service, but they usually don't provide you with enough money in order to administer and
Right.
to succeed in terms of the operation of that grant, and you have to subsidize it. And so we may find ourselves having to do that for certain grants that we feel are valuable to the community, but we certainly want to protect the integrity of our ongoing projects along with those grants and not overextend ourselves to the
Right.
point where we fail with a grant, because then it's even worse than not going for the grant at all.
I would
Well,
like
that-
to share, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's a good example, the FTA 5311, where we, essentially ran out of time, and now we're having to,
The upside of the 5311, if we're successful, we have local funds that are not water fund and are not general fund that we could utilize for the outside support. I want to be explicit and also share there are two other assumptions that didn't make their way onto a slide. The Main Street Lighting Project, the Holt Group is in review of those design plans. And in a perfect world, we would have the opportunity to have an outside firm construction manage that, because electrical work is not our specialty as a city. The second area is One World Beef, and I'm glad you mentioned it. We have continued to retain the Holt Group for review of the biofiltro plans. For the sake of continuity and making it as easy as possible for One World to only have one point of contact relative to those plans. That's the current strategy, and there may be a need for additional authorization from the council in the future once we exhaust the funds available.
Right. And some of those are good business decisions, and I think we need to make those. And so I think that's a good thing for us, and it benefits both the business and the city. So we want to continue to do that. As you bring forward options to us, we expect you to bring those forward to us.
Any other comments?
And if I could, Mr. Mayor, just to hit on just a few of the other topics. So with reference to what we just discussed now, what is between you and staff, with what was presented, we understand those are the most critical capital improvement projects, with reference obviously to water and waste, the wastewater plant. Our ability to deliver those within the next 12 months with respect to what we just talked about, is it in jeopardy, or do you feel pretty strongly, or staff feel pretty strongly we do have the bandwidth to get those done?
For priority projects, to preserve the grants and perform them, to complete the water plant related improvements, to perform our normal valve replacement. I don't see the water line replacement project moving forward this next fiscal year. I'm just going through here. We will do our very best to deliver Phase 11, because there's nothing more significant to our public than that.
And when you reference that, we do a lot of that work in-house, as mentioned, to stretch those dollars. So is that, again, are we talking about the same head count, the same engineer? Okay, I want that understood, so.
Probably what would be sacrificed in terms of priorities, unless it's a different prioritization conveyed to staff by the council, is things such as the preliminary engineering report for Main Street, the South Alley. maybe the downtown beautification project, those smaller items that take time and attention, but they mean that the same staff that would be assigned to a construction project are actively engaged in an engineering design, they're not available. The big projects take anywhere from 8 to 12 months to accomplish through all the bidding process, design, bidding, award, and actual construction. So we've gone through an exercise internally to say, okay, we have 3 staff engineers. How many projects can they reasonably accomplish in 1 year's time? Recognizing that Guillermo's capability as the Public Works Director, the hope is oversight, but we may not have that luxury. So you can see how that gets you to somewhere, best case, 2 to 2.5 projects in a 12-month period. And so that's why we're prioritizing and beginning to create that list of must move forward. The water plant items must move forward.
Right.
The grants we're trying to preserve. Everything else, we're going to do our best to deliver roadway improvements because we know that's got the biggest punch.
Mm-hmm.
And the others will do our very best to perform.
I have a comment in regards to the water line replacement projects. You said that one will not be able to get to.
Right.
And, I mean, just based on the pictures that you have of the deterioration of if we wait on it another year, we may have emergencies, Band-Aid, we may end up spending more money. I mean, is there any way that we could possibly use the Caltrans funds and plan to work on that one?
I
or-
would not recommend the use of relinquishment money tied to roadway improvements to use for water.
No?
I think, and the
I
other
just
thing,
see-
it's not the funding, it's the bandwidth
It's
to
bandwidth
deliver
plus
the
funding.
product.
The-
Yeah,
the-
that's what
the
we're
lack of staff.
talking about, yeah.
I just see it as, well, I mean, we have to decide which ones to do, and I understand the grant commitments, we have to do those. But I just would like to be able to address these, only because I think the deterioration is gonna get that much worse, and it'll probably cost us even more money, because you're saying now it's close to 4 million. And we wait 1 more year, it'll probably be maybe 6 million, I don't know. So,
Valid
do you have
points.
any other ideas as far as?
Financing? I mean, financing. So it's a question of, are you willing to go silent on all other projects? Because this is an 18 to 24-month construction period where Main Street will be ripped up, all traffic will be diverted. This is an interesting kind of way to think about it. All traffic will be diverted off of Main Street for the first phase of this, which is First to, I think it's split up to Second. The Caltrans right-of-way, this will occur within the intersection of Brawley Avenue and Main. All traffic will be diverted to Western Avenue for a period of time of construction. I mean, these are big items. Imagine how Cattle Call Parade will be affected. There are,
Everything affected.
this is probably the most significant project Brawley will experience in terms of community.
I think we're doing the right work there. We've made this a priority in a project going back a few years ago. It's the same underground plumbing that's been there for 100 years.
100 years,
So
right.
it wasn't addressed for
It's
100
designed, though,
years.
that's the difference.
We're addressing it
Right.
now. It goes through multiple phases leading up to before you ever break ground. I understand that. And so I think it comes down to the decision we're facing. It's a bandwidth issue. So if we were to take that on, it would basically, we have to go through this list again and say, we're not doing that, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. And a lot of what we're moving forward with were critical infrastructure, capital improvement projects that our water treatment plant might not run correctly, or our wastewater treatment plant might not run correctly. So I think that's important, and we've been Band-Aiding now for 50 years or 40 years or 30
So we'll
years.
probably just continue Band-Aiding until we get to it.
Till we have the
With
bandwidth.
that said, eventually, we're probably gonna have to do this. It just depends upon what year we choose to do this in, and I think eventually we are gonna have to bite that bullet as we move along. Now, it may not happen in the next 2 or 3 years, but it's gotta happen eventually. Those things have to be addressed.
There is interest from the financing community in this project. Prior to Mr. Cias's departure, Ruby, Guillermo, and I did launch a series of meetings with a number of funding entities, preparing packages for the financial information for the packages. We need to kind of, as a team, work on packaging that. I placed it on ice when Guillermo departed because we needed to have someone in place to be that primary point of contact for NAD Bank or any other entity that might be a funding partner.
And where I was leading with my questions, I apologize, I know we're in this, is just, once we get past this year, what's the forecast, though, for our bandwidth? That's what I was getting to. Is it going to improve enough to where we can take, I know there's always the unknown,
Yes.
but let's just take the knowns.
The knowns are we have two very significant vacancies in the city, and I hope by this time next year we have manpower in place.
There you go. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any statements, questions, anything from the audience? If not, then we'll move along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosanna.
Thank you. A lot of work.
Okay, item 7, departmental reports. Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management Administrator.
Yes, sir. Shirley Benias, Personnel and Risk Management Administrator. Just as a slight point to clarify, if I may, Rosanna, the 3 staff members is a Public Works Director, that's an engineer. We have a senior engineer, and then we have an associate who just started with us about 5 months ago. So, yes, the bandwidth is minimal. Just, if I may, direct your attention to the staff report for May. The police department, we are going to swear in our final vacancy on the police officers on May 16th at 9 a.m. That will give us all our slots filled on the police officers. Yes, there's 2 dispatch openings right now. We do have people in backgrounds. Chief is thinking that we should have one cleared to do a conditional offer very soon. We have brought back, if you can drop down to the lower portion, it's not indicated on your report, but a part-time dispatcher has been hired to assist since we do have these 2 openings right now. It's 2 openings, plus we have 1 person on medical leave out of that section of the police department. So it is a little challenging right now. The seasonal positions for Parks and Recreation have gone on their way. Lifeguards and pool cashiers are currently being recruited. I'm hoping to open the summer day camp positions as early as tomorrow. So we will have a lot of foot traffic through this building coming the next couple weeks. And of course, I'm always welcome to answer your questions.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8, city council member reports. Ms. Noriega.
Yes, I was a little late because I went to the 2017 Stop and Listen Asthma Forum, and there was a couple of things that I felt were very important. And one of the disparity community, it's a group of individuals that experience a greater burden of asthma. And it's the minors between 0 and 17 years of age. And then likewise, individuals in the North End part of the county are visiting the emergency room department for asthma, more individuals from this end than any other city on the South End. So I was kind of backtracked on that, and I thought, wow. But one of my questions to them was, is the water have anything to do with it? And they could not answer me, but they're going to check into that and see if that has something to do with our asthma kids. Another thing, there was 4 groups, Southwest, Calexico, Imperial, and Valley Christian Academy, I believe it was. They competed. I was saddened to hear that Brawley did not compete, so they will be hearing from me on that. There was, one of the kids announced that in his high school, there are 225 students that have asthma, and only 12 of them have their inhalers. So there's questions why. Is it because the parents don't, communicate with the school, or do they carry their own, which supposedly they're not supposed to, but I believe a few do. So I challenged the city councils of the Imperial Valley, Calexico, Imperial, and everybody, that we would donate $200 towards our high school to help these children that are not able or do not have their inhalers with them. So this is my challenge to our city council, that we donate towards the asthma community that puts on this forum. It helps lots and lots. It helps all our kids here in the Imperial Valley for doctors' visits and many other things, even for adults. So that was one of my challenges. Yesterday also, I went to the Mega Mixer, which I felt was probably one of the best that I've been to. We, Chamber of Commerce, including our gentleman there that was in the bar giving out, selling drinks and making money for the chamber, did a great job. But we also had lots of merchants from around the valley that came and gave out free stuff. And I have to say, congratulations to all those people that came. Our city also was there, was part of the chamber group. We also had a table there, so thank you for putting that on and having our staff man that. I won the biggest prize, which was 2 tickets to SeaWorld. And my grandson doesn't know, but he's graduating from 8th grade, and that's one of my presents to him, that he can take one of his friends with him to SeaWorld. Other things have happened on my way here. Unfortunately, I got a phone call that my cousin Margarita Trujillo passed away this morning, saddened by cancer. She just was probably informed a few months ago that she had cancer, but unfortunately she didn't last very long. And so that's all I can remember after that. Thank you.
Okay. Norma?
Okay. I know that Helen attended a few of these also, but like you said, she's probably been inundated with things. Several of us attended the events by Liz ribbon cutting. It's a new business. Actually, she's extended her business. She already has a business in Brawley, warehouse, I understand, but now she's going to be on Main Street so that she can show her products. It's she does decorating for weddings and things like that. Very talented young lady. And the event was very well attended. And we were all of us were very impressed with her and her capabilities to make those wonderful things, and I think she's going to be very successful here in Brawley. So very happy to be able to attend that and to see the businesses that continue to come in our Main Street, even though most of them are still focusing on the 100 block, and we want them to extend further down Main Street, but it's all good. And then, of course, on the 26th, most of us were also able to attend our employee recognition appreciation luncheon. That was a very great, very nice event that was put on by our staff, and very much appreciated, I know, from everybody that was there. They were all very happy. I think they were happy for the ones that won, even though some of them couldn't win, but great event, very happy to be able to attend that also. And then I also attended the Mega Mixer last night at the Hidalgo. And like Helen said, that was one of the best attended events. I think it was a big mix of people from throughout Brawley and from out of Brawley also. A lot of people from other cities made it to our event, and that was really good to see. And I was also a winner of I think it was donated by Reach. So thank you, Councilman. So we're all pretty lucky there. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And unfortunately, I want to start off, I was not able to, for the first time, actually attend the employee appreciation, but I do want to say as a matter of not just record, but how much they're absolutely appreciating. I know their council's always very well represented, and I heard there were a lot of winners, and I even heard the grand prize winner really showed, I think, her enthusiasm toward the grand prize. So I definitely look forward to that again next year, and I think always thank you to all the staff, and I know Shirley plays a big role in leading the charge and getting that event together. So with that also, I attended the Mega Mixer as kind of a participant, so I was there as a merchant, but I agree with what Norma and certainly Helen has already mentioned about it was a nice change of pace, a nice venue to have it there at Hidalgo Hall, and again, I think it was very good for the networking and as well as the many prize winners. And I was really surprised again the generous donations out there, because there were a lot of winners, that walked away. So, and congratulations again, Helen. We witnessed her winning that. And then finally, I want to give a real heartfelt thank you to Commander Brown for taking some time out of his day. Last week, I think it was last week, I brought a young man that was interested in law enforcement, and I kind of took advantage of being a council member to be able to kind of call in a little bit of a favor of some time. And the chief was gracious enough to connect me with Commander Brown that took us on the grand tour. But most important, I want the public to know that we have officers like this that are willing to share their experience to inspire younger ones, and I hope this one, again, is another potential peace officer here in Imperial County at the very least. So, again, I want to thank you very much, Commander Brown, for that. And, Mr. Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you very much. George?
Thank you, everyone. A few items to update you on. I was able to participate and attend the events by Liz, Chamber Mixer, and I've known Liz most all of my life, so I'm very happy for her and seeing her business prosper over the past few years, and she's offering additional service, not just in Brawley, but throughout the valley. So I'm glad to see that that's happening for her, and she's making an investment, not just in Brawley, but in new staff, and she's offering opportunities to others. So I really do appreciate business owners. I've been one for many years, and when you're responsible for other people, it's sometimes very stressful. So I'm happy for her, and I wish her well. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I met and I went to the ICTC meeting, and I did bring up the Legion Road Improvement Project and the desire to see if we can help gap fund that project with some funding from ICTC. So that's being considered at the very least. I also met with Katie Luna, who you heard from here today. I met with her yesterday in person. We had a lengthy discussion regarding just her position as executive director and just the vision that she sees for the Chamber of Commerce, and really seeing how she can bridge that partnership with the city and really tighten the relationship. So it was a very productive conversation, and I threw an idea back at her that I proposed probably 5 or 6 years ago, and we're going to develop it together and hopefully present that in the near future. So I think that'll be a great way to promote business and get people active again in the business community. So I'll give you the details at a future time. Also participated at the IVEDC roundtable, and so we were able to hear about some of the things that are coming to Imperial County, and we had stakeholders from throughout the valley that we're representing there. Of course, the City Employee Recognition Banquet was fantastic. I want to congratulate all of the staff and everyone that was there, and certainly I appreciate everything that staff does, from executive management down to our laborers out in Parks and Rec and everything else. So everybody has something to contribute, including council and our city attorney, our city clerk. Everybody contributes. Everybody has a role in this city, and it's been a pleasure to see the city evolve and the staff get promoted over years and things change. So I'm happy to see that, and I'm glad that we have a fantastic staff. I really do believe that, and I think residents appreciate that as well. One last item. I think this is also an important item. Is I met with a real estate developer who proposed, actually they had maps laid out of the old water plant. So they want to propose a public-private partnership. And what they've proposed, and really this is just preliminary, they had the nice maps, they had everything laid out. And I'll bring it before council here in the future, and they'll probably be presenting something. But what they'd considered is having like veterans housing there. They considered having, and it's laid out. It's a large property, as we all know. Seeing the roadways continue through there. I mean, there's some logistical things that we need to work through because of, Caltrans in '86. But commercial development. So there's a lot of different things that they're considering putting before us there. So it looks promising. Of course, this is just, a conversation at this point, but they did have some maps laid out. It was impressive just to see it laid out. And, of course, it would need to go through multiple reviews and, consideration. But there's interest in that. And I know I've had the conversation in the past, but I have never seen maps laid out like they were, and it looked very appealing. So that would be a really great improvement to our community if we could have some commercial development and office space for small business and other things. There could be something there. So they will likely be presenting something here in the near future, and we can ask all the questions that you'd like at that point. But that's what I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My last couple of weeks was pretty busy. I attended a Rotary Spring Dinner at the Town Pump, very well attended. Councilmember Wharton was there, and we had a lot of attendance over there, and it was a great dinner. I also was invited to attend the Career Day at the Enrique Camarena Junior High School in Calexico. I was not invited as the mayor of Brawley. I was invited as a representative for renewable energy, so I was able to do that. I also attended the Brawley Employee Awards and Recognition Luncheon, and I think everybody stated all of our feelings here, and I won't go into great detail on that.
I want to hear your feelings.
Yeah. Also, the Chamber Mega Mixer, great attendance, really nice event. And then I also attended the Air Pollution Control District Advisory Meeting in El Centro. I'm on the committee representing the city of Brawley. And what they're preparing is a report that will go into the federal government, and it talks about our non-attainment of because of air pollution here in Imperial County overall. A lot of that is due to the Mexicali region and the impact that it has. But some of the interesting things, and Councilmember Noriega brought this up, some of the interesting things that go on is we sometimes have higher air pollution that relates in that report in the north end. Not so much in Brawley, but in our Calipatria and Nyland regions, we tend to get more air pollution in those areas. And it's kind of a unique phenomenon, and it comes in, I think, from the Riverside area, and it comes down out of the Indio and Coachella area, and also may come from some of the desert of the sea, the Salton Sea possibly. But we do have a higher level there sometimes than we have in the Calexico area and in the El Centro area, and I thought that was interesting.
But not only that, I think that educating the people from the north end has somewhat to do with it, because they don't know that they have asthma, number one, when they have the clinica out there, but yet they have no education on what to do. It's interesting I could go on. There's so much that I learned today on how these people are not being educated.
And the reason why I bring that up, though, is because of that, but also because I think it's indicative that we think about the South End and Calexico having the majority of the problems. As we move north, it tends to get better, and it does, up until the point that it reaches Brawley. And then after Brawley, it sometimes gets worse. And so it's kind of a unique situation. Now, Brawley's in kind of a unique position because theirs runs fairly low in terms of the air pollution. However, we do get some air pollution coming up from the north end, and we have to be very aware of that, I think, here in Brawley. And so it just kind of dovetailed in with what Councilmember Noriega was talking about by the results of that study that they've done and the report that they're going to do to the federal government. So I think it's important that we monitor those situations. It's also important that we do what we can do, such as paving the parking lot at Volunteer Park, doing the little things that we can do to reduce air pollution in our north end area. And I think that's an important part of what we do here.
We could probably get more money too.
And with that, and I do think the APCD is well aware of that, and they do make money available to us to try to alleviate some of those problems. And some of those problems we cannot alleviate fully because of the international border, and that poses some additional problems for us. But hopefully in the future, hey, we can do some things in that area also. And that's what I have to report. So with that, moving on, we will move on to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Couchman. Just just have a few items to report. The first is a reminder that this week, Southern California Association of Governments will be hosting their annual General Assembly. I believe many of our council members will be in attendance. Wanted to also note that on Friday, we do have a ribbon cutting of a local business. I will be returning Thursday evening along with Mayor Couchman, and will represent the city on Friday at that event for Ojeda Industries on Jones Street. And if you need any other assistance with regard.
What time is that?
Ojeda
5:30?
Industries is at,
11 o'clock.
I think it's
Oh,
11
it's in the
a.m.
morning.
on
It's
Friday.
in the morning on Friday.
Right.
It's not in the evening, and that's the thing.
I did apologize to him that a lot of us would be out of town, but that the chamber folks would be there, and perhaps we could have some staff there.
Yes,
I will be there.
Oh, you will be?
I will
Okay.
be there.
I spoke with him after you, Councilmember Howdegi, and he was excited to hear that we'd have some city representation.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but the Dancing with the Stars is that Friday evening also. So I think,
Yes.
and we do have a table, and so
Yes.
we want to have everybody there that can be there.
Wanted to also note that it's that unique time of year where we tend to have many competing interests of park facilities, and things have begun to heat up a little bit. We're doing our best as staff to facilitate through conflicts that may occur through various park users. You may have contact made with you regarding some of those logistical challenges and a desire for priority accommodation. Also wanted to note, yesterday's Chamber Mega Mixer was great, and one of the things that was different from the way the city has participated in the past is I had the opportunity to have two newer staff members join us, and it was a lot of fun to see them interact. I lost track of how many people came to me privately and said, "You have some really bright new employees. It's really exciting to see, and they're locally raised in the valley and have a lot of promise." So that was fun to hear the feedback, and I said no poaching. They're ours. Hopefully they don't come and try to steal them from us. But it was great to see them interact, and some people had a chance to interface with folks. This is their first time out as professionals, and other adults had not seen them since they were children. So it was fun to see that interaction. What do you do for the city? And get to hear what their schooling was and how they're back in the community raising families and wanting to be part of a local agency's future. Last item, wanted to note a meeting is in the process of being established between Caltrans as well as IID and the city of Brawley regarding the palm trees topic on Main Street. We're hoping to get that a meeting set. There's quite a few individuals out of the Caltrans District 11 in their landscape and maintenance division, various individuals throughout the food chain of the agency. So we're coordinating schedules to get everybody into Imperial Valley. I hope to have some information to share with you in the future. And that is my report. If you have any questions, yes.
Yes, because of the death in my family, I will not be using my 2 tickets.
For
So,
the Dancing
For
with
the
the
Dancing of
Stars.
the Stars, yes, sir. I will not.
Possibly someone at the city could go in your place.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Remind me to give them to you, Alma.
Maybe you can check and see.
Yes, I'd be happy to do so.
Yes. Okay. All right. City Attorney report.
During this week, I'm trying to get a petition on file on a code enforcement issue. Working with some other folks that are having a code enforcement dispute, and I think I've got that all worked out. And I've been helping Commander Hauser prepare a procedure on how to deal with retired police officers and their concealed weapons permits. And then I called City Clerk in Calapat today and told her that on Monday I hit 20 years as their city attorney, and I'm expecting a cake from her, but I kind of doubt I'll get it.
And what did she say? What did she say about that?
Well, you'd have to know her.
Oh, you do? That's what Marie Antoinette wanted too. You know what she got.
She had some choice words, I'm sure.
She's a fun.
Yeah, she is.
Okay, City Clerk report.
resolutions for the upcoming election in November should be coming probably the next meeting or the following meeting. I
Okay.
got stuff from the county already.
Okay, very good. Okay. And then, we don't have any closed session?
No, not this
No
evening.
closed session? Well, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.